Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Keynote series of the Global Sanitation Graduate School. This is number 5 of our editions, and we have the privilege to have this time our guests from the Birla Institute of Technology and Science in Pelani as co-hosts. And we have two great speakers today, Professor Chary and Mr. Raman, who are going to share their experience and a lot of knowledge in the implementation of citywide inclusive sanitation in India. Professor Srinkath, as a co-host, I would like to give you the opportunity to say a couple of words. And just before I do that, I just wanted to mention that today's session is about 90 minutes. We would have the two presenters firstly giving their talks. You're more than welcome to post your all the comments, messages, share with us where do you come from, what are your interests, and then we would address after the presenters are finished, we would have a joint discussion and share with you, try to answer to your questions. Professor Srinkath, would you like to add a couple of words?
Yeah, thanks, Constantina. So it's a pleasure to be in this lecture series and being given we are organizing from our side. And we have two great speakers here who are long partners for us and also in running the GSGS program. So in running some of the lectures, Dr. Raman is associated with us for on sanitation finance aspect, so which where he teaches for the students for the ME courses, and with undoubtedly with Professor Srinivas Chary we have been associated. He is leading ink wash team, so doing great work in the field of sanitation. So I thank both the speakers that they could take the time out for this event, and looking forward to hear their talks.
Thank you so much. And last but not least, I would like to mention our other co-host, Ms. Prajakta. Thank you very much for all your support.
Thank you, Tina.
Thank you. So without wasting any more time, I would like to introduce our first speaker. This is Professor Chary, who is the director of the Center of Urban Governance, Environment, Energy and Infrastructure Development at the Administrative Staff College of India. He is an urban environmental planner and public health engineer with over 2 decades of experience in urban infrastructure services, governance reforms, and equity. He specializes in water and environmental sanitation services in urban areas, and his portfolio spans policy, program, capacity development, and knowledge management projects of national, state, and city governments. We have quite a long list of achievements. We would like to give you the word, Professor Chary. Please share your knowledge with us. Thank you. I think you're on mute.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Constantina, Professor Srikanth, and my Ms. Patil, and my co-panelist, Dr. Raman. Thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Srinivas Chary, and today, as part of this conversation, I'll be sharing some experiences from India in the context of citywide inclusive sanitation in action. India has embarked on sanitation improvement program, safely managed sanitation improvement program, and we have some very interesting experience and these experiences is what I'm going to talk about over the next 25 minutes today. Uh, India looks at sanitation. And what is sanitation for us? Sanitation has four critical systems. One is about excreta management. System is used water management or wastewater management. Third is the municipal solid waste management as well as stormwater drainage systems. It's not just about excreta management that sanitation encompasses, and India looks at it in an integrated way. Of course, we made significant progress in the context of solid waste management and some extent on the stormwater management, but I think a lot needs to be done on the excreta and wastewater management, and that's what is the Citywide Inclusive Sanitation Program in India is focusing on right now. And our experiences are focused on excreta management and wastewater management today. Now, having said that, sanitation is beyond fecal sludge and septage management. What is the aspiration of the governments and city leaders in India? The aspiration, like everywhere else, is to ensure that safely managed sanitation services are delivered to the citizens for improving public health and environmental quality. And it has to be done in an inclusive way, not only targeting a particular community, but also targeting the vulnerable population, women, children, urban poor, and marginalized communities. And it has to be not in a select geography, but it has to be citywide, system-wide, geographically comprehensive, so that the public health benefits are also comprehensive enough, not in a particular geography. And these services have to be delivered on a seamless, sustainable way. And that's when the city-wide inclusive sanitation programming has evolved in the country. So the whole purpose is to ensure quality of life, public health, and environmental quality in an inclusive manner. And that's the genesis for citywide inclusive sanitation programming in India. And then we have learned some lessons, and those lessons are will be shared with you for cross-learning purposes. Now, the way we look at citywide inclusive sanitation, I think all of us know what is citywide inclusive sanitation, globally defined. But I think it's all about, for us, it is not about technology, it is not about business models or public-private partnerships. It is about building robust systems for inclusive sanitation service delivery. The systems would include both institutional capacities, the systems would include financing, the systems will include human capital, and the systems also would include clear accountability and performance monitoring. So the citywide inclusive sanitation, as defined globally, in fact, we are trying to unpack it and focus on building systems. And there are a lot of interesting positives, but also there are a lot of challenges in this whole journey. Now, while we build the systems, it's very important that we realize that it is not about creating infrastructure through this systems approach, but focusing on service quality. And this service quality should be targeted, particularly for the poor, where this infrastructure may be delivered, but service may not be delivered, for the simple reason that we may put a pipeline, but the pipeline may not be connected to the low-income communities. So the focus is now on inclusive planning, and focus is on service delivery standards and service delivery monitoring rather than infrastructure creation. And it's equally important that we focus on monitoring this service quality, not just monitoring the infrastructure creation. This is another important lesson we have learned, but this is the way we are now looking at it. When it is about infrastructure, we are not looking at a particular infrastructure service or a service model. Could be sewerage system, but we are also looking at non-sewer sanitation. But also we are preparing ourselves for looking at alternative technological solutions, including reinventing toilet technologies, including package systems like Jokaso systems of Japanese systems. So we are looking at technological neutral approach with a focus on service quality, public health outcomes, and we are open to embarking on a comprehensive bandwidth of different technology solutions beyond non-sewer sanitation, including reinventing toilet systems. Having said that, the national government, the government of India under the leadership of Honorable Prime Minister, has launched what is called the Clean India Mission. We call it as Swachh Bharat Mission in 2014-15. And then this mission has led to a massive expansion of individual household toilets, public conveniences, making more than 4,355 towns open defecation free. But we have taken a path of on-site sanitation for ensuring coverage. So that's why if you look at urban systems, 70% of the urban systems are connected to on-site toilet systems rather than sewer systems. So predominantly septic tanks and pit latrines. So India has expanded this sanitation provision, safe sanitation provision, using non-sewer sanitation, on-site sanitation system. Now, this has been a fabulous journey, very rapid, very quick, but it also opened up a number of challenges. As all of us know that fecal sludge septage management is a externality created because of this on-site sanitation system. And we have a lot of incidents of contamination of water bodies, pollution of the lands, and unsafe disposal practices continue to prevail. And that particular scenario has led to what is called Clean India Mission 2.0. Now, the Clean India Mission 2.0 is primarily targeting what is called safely managed sanitation, going beyond toilet provision, which happened as part of the Clean India Mission 1, which focused on providing access to individual household toilets as promulgated under Sustainable Development Goals. Now, Clean India Mission 2.0 is looking beyond toilet provision and looking at safe management of the sanitation. As I said, safe management of sanitation is not just about fecal sludge and septage management, but also the Clean India Mission 2.0 is also looking at grey water management or the liquid waste management. Now, I'm happy to inform you that we call it as the ODF++, the safely managed sanitation we define as ODF++. ODF is open defecation free, plus is safely managed sanitation. And we have already achieved about 1,091 towns have declared as ODF++. Now the focus is on circularity, usage of biosolids, usage of used water. About 40 towns is called water, focusing on reuse and recycling. This is a journey just begun. There's a long way to go. And in this process of this whole implementation of safely managed sanitation, through a lens of citywide inclusive sanitation approach, which is focusing on systems, we have learned quite a few lessons. And these lessons are super important for India as well as for the South Asian region. And I think these lessons are common in a way. Now, this sort of experience, we have developed what is called non-negotiables. We have identified certain non-negotiables for delivering safely managed sanitation through citywide inclusive sanitation approach. Now, non-negotiable that we have learned, and we are going to sort of take it at scale, is that sanitation should be recognized as a public service. And since it is a public service, it has to be delivered as a municipal function. To draw a parallel, if you look at any South Asian city, any Paurushava in Bangladesh or India, you would see that municipal solid waste function is actually, the solid waste function is taken at the municipal level. It is perceived as a public service. It is delivered by the local governments. Unfortunately, the broader sanitation, the safely managed sanitation is still not there as a public service, and it is not delivered by the municipality. Many a times it is looked at as a private function. The first and the foremost non-negotiable agenda that we have promoting as part of our experience is that how do we ensure that safely managed sanitation, FSM, and used water management and beyond be defined as a public service, and that can only be done by amendment to the municipal acts and including making sure that safely managed sanitation is embedded in the municipal act. So you need to have a framework. Similarly, we need to have functional devolution. When I say functional devolution, it means that there is a very clear line of accountability from the higher tier of government. It could be the national government or a state government to the local government, that safety is your responsibility, and you need to have a departmental system in place to ensure that it is delivered seamlessly the way municipal solid waste is delivered. So this is a second important thing that we are attempting to establish a framework, establish very clear rules of the game through functional devolution. Third is ensuring that a multidisciplinary team is engaged as part of this environmental sanitation department. You not only need engineers, you need social behavior change communication experts, you need gender experts, you need management information system experts. So the third is about having the human capital to drive this agenda. And the fourth F is dedicated budget line. So the first non-negotiable is that sanitation should be looked at as a public service, and it has to be treated as a municipal function. And our India's experience is moving in that direction. A lot of state governments, a lot of municipalities are making this attempt, and this is a way forward to ensure that citywide inclusive sanitation gets embedded in the system. These are some examples where we work in the city of Warangal, where they have issued a notification of creation of a new department for environmental sanitation, creation of a new human capital, a 5-member team dedicated for this service, so that this particular team delivers the safely managed sanitation on a continuous basis. The second non-negotiable for us is creating what is called, is very important, to nurture political will and administrative leadership. And we believe our lessons have shown that we need to engage political system through evidence-based and data-driven advocacy. We need to organize learning visits, peer learning, demonstration and pilots, and building this trust. So we have done this exercise in a couple of pilot cities like in Warangal and few other, Narsapur and few other places. And these lessons are used for replication and scale. So the second important non-negotiable for us is nurturing political will for citywide inclusive sanitation, and creating what is called a city leadership for sanitation is very, very important. And this is what we are currently doing. And the experience is very, very promising right now. The third important non-negotiable for ensuring that citywide inclusive sanitation gets institutionalized is to ensure that sanitation systems are designed for the poor and marginalized intentionally. It can't be an afterthought. It has to be designed intentionally, be it infrastructure, be it systems. We have to design it for the poor, so that if it works for the poor, it works for the city. And that's the approach we take. And that's a big lesson we have learned. So we have established a number of systems like helpline for accessing subsidies, information, technical assistance, grievance redressal. This sanitation helpline, particularly for the poor, really enabled them to gain access to services. We also created what is called City Sanitation Task Force, which has about more than 50% representation from the poor and marginalized communities, and so on and so forth. I'm not going to get into all the details, but I'd just like to highlight that we need to design the systems for the poor to work for the city. A third example is delinking land tenure and toilet subsidies. So there has to be a conscious effort, irrespective of where they stay, the sanitation subsidies and infrastructure should be made available. These are some examples of intentional sanitation provision. This is the exclusive toilet for women, what we call as a she toilet, came out of conversations. These are intentional sanitation planning for the poor and marginalized communities and people who do not have dedicated access. So we created this. This is a mobile toilet for the the women workers and the shopkeepers. They wanted a toilet on the move. So this is an example. Likewise, all the toilets have gone through gender audit to make sure that these facilities are amenable for different sections of the population, including the third gender. So the third gender is also part and parcel of the city sanitation task force, and then the sanitation planning is done intentionally for all the sections of the population. This is an example of intentional planning, from not only from gender intentionality but also intentional planning from urban poor and marginalized communities. This is the third. The fourth important lesson we have learned, that in order for sanitation to work seamlessly, you need to have a very strong integrated municipal monitoring and decision making systems. You need to monitor every function and every aspect of sanitation service delivery and its performance. So the CWIS indicators have to be tracked and monitored. And we have some very interesting examples of all our assets, be it FSTP, public conveniences, systems, all of them are tracked and monitored at the state level, at the highest level. Now we realize that without monitoring, many of the systems and assets will fail. And this is a big lesson, that if you are replicating citywide inclusive sanitation, you need to have a good monitoring system in place. And this monitoring system has to be ICT enabled, technologically enabled, so that it becomes cost effective and also it becomes much more efficient. This is an example of all the toilets which are likely to come up as part of the building approval. If a new building is getting approved, the toilet is being provided, the toilet design is automatically checked along with the building approval system. We call this as ICT enabled toilet monitoring system. So the design of the building, that the design of the toilet infrastructure, of the septic tank, be it length, breadth, depth, all of them based on the population of the household, number of people living in the house, will be designed and it is approved through the ICT based system. So this is an example of monitoring. This is an example of how monitoring will improve sanitation service delivery. This is another example of a sensor-based real-time monitoring system. We monitor three parameters: the smell, the footfall, and the water availability. The public conveniences are monitored on a real-time basis so that we know exactly if these facilities are working, whether they are making is that the non-negotiable citywide inclusive sanitation replication is about robust monitoring, and this has to be put in place. The other lesson we have learned as part of our implementation effort is that the public sector, while sanitation is a public function, it can be delivered through public-private partnership. And we have proven it in Indian context. For example, many of our assets, be it a fecal sludge treatment plants or wastewater treatment plants, public conveniences, all of them are built through PPP models. This is an example of public conveniences in some of our towns built through public-private partnership. The private sector invests, operate, and then they recover money through user charges. This is another example of ICT-based monitoring. So the public sector, the municipality will become the regulator. They monitor the performance of these assets rather than managing these assets. And this asset management is done by the private sector on a long-term basis. These are examples in one of the states in Telangana in India, where almost 140 fecal sludge treatment plants are built on a PPP model. We call it as hybrid annuity model. This is an example of a PPP managed fecal sludge treatment plants. We call them as sanitation resource parks, and they work wonderfully. They have a 10-year operation and maintenance built in the whole arrangement. And this is a way we ensure and service. So the PPPs can work in the context of sanitation, and this is an experience of India, and other countries also can start looking at public-private partnership as one of the important ways of delivering safe sanitation. The other important lesson we have learned is that while technology, while systems are important, it's equally important to have civil society engagement for greater accountability and sustainability. So we have started this exercise of what is called creating a civil society platforms for behavior change, for citizen-led sanitation information system, for social audits. We started in Warangal, where all the sanitation related aspects are now audited by the civil society groups, and then that feedback goes into the city government for performance monitoring and improvement. So this is another important lesson we have learned, that unless and until the systems are made accountable, the sanitation service provision can slip. And this accountability could be done through community engagement, by engaging communities as a auditor of all these service delivery functions. So this is another important way of ensuring sanitation provision is sustained by greater accountability and engaging community civil society organizations. I strongly encourage that as part of the accountability relationship and improving accountability, I think civil society engagement could be taken as a way forward. The important lesson or important initiative that we have done as part of the scaling up citywide inclusive sanitation is promoting technological innovations. Now, there are many challenges that the conventional systems cannot solve. For example, we can't put certain technologies in low income communities. We cannot put certain technologies where the water table is high. We need innovations. In certain areas, the land is not available for treatment plants. So what we did as part of our effort for work with the governments is to promote what is called innovations at different levels, and we bring in a variety of technologies have been attempted. If you can see, we have implemented 6 different technological designs based on the local conditions and context, and these designs are now scaled up. These solutions are scaled up and they are working very well. So based on the local context, from pyrolysis to geobag solutions to electrocoagulation, to you name a solution, we have implemented, learned lessons, and then we are scaling up using this technological game-changing ideas. Similarly, we have sort of implemented another interesting thing on the wastewater treatment. We have soil biotechnology, we have aerated wetlands, we have nature-based solutions, recycling systems. So the point I'm making is that I think communities, the city governments, as well as the provincial governments, the national governments, we need to start creating what is called ease of doing business for innovations, ease of doing business for technological solutions. We can't go by conventional systems given the challenge of sanitation in different geographies. So this is a big lesson, that whenever we are looking at citywide inclusive sanitation, we need to be open for technological innovations as per the requirements of the local context. Now we have established what is called WASH Innovation Hub, which is a hub primarily to bring lot of startups, lot of innovators in the MSME segment to come and work with us for solving the local problems. These are climate resilient solutions. These solutions can help reach the unreached. This is very, very important. These solutions will focus on pathogen reduction. These solutions help reduce the carbon footprint and decarbonize the whole system. So we need to open for this. I'm happy to inform you that the states that we work in India, they have created an ecosystem for bringing in various technologies to solve local problems, and it's open for innovations. So the ease of doing business for innovation is an important lesson we have learned. It cannot be only systems all the time. We need technological solutions to solve the problem. Funds are important, functionaries are important, but innovation is equally important in addressing sanitation problems. Finally, we need to understand, and this is our experience, that sanitation is not a 1-year job, 2 year job, or a 5-year job. It's a long-term issue. The cities are expanding, the densities increases, the proliferation of slums could happen because of a number of other reasons. So the sanitation planning is a long-term planning agenda. And this long-term planning agenda often can take decades. So you need a multi-year climate resilient service delivery improvement plan, and that's another important lesson we have learned. It can't be putting up an FSTP. It is all about regularizing desludging operation. It is all about, it's not just about public promoting personal protective equipment of workforce. It has a long-term planning with long-term investments, institutional strengthening. And we are looking for partners right now, and I think researchers and partners, to help us create what is called a multi-year climate resilient service delivery improvement plan. And through this webinar, I want to open up this conversation to all of you. If you want to partner with us, please join us in developing model documents, model guidelines, so that this multi-year planning, climate resilient plans can be replicated to not only in India, but also in other geographies. So just to summarize, the citywide inclusive sanitation in action, there are about 9 lessons we have learned, and these lessons are highly relevant for not only in the geographies in India that we work, it is applicable for the whole country and probably South Asia. Just to recap quickly, sanitation is a public service and a municipal function. This has to be notified through municipal acts. We need to nurture political will and administrative leadership. You need a very strong behavior change communication to get this going. We need a very strong intentional, poor intentional urban sanitation system planning for improving quality of life in the city and improving the sanitation in the city. Fourth lesson is data and monitoring systems are important. Please embed data and monitoring system right at the early stage, so that we don't do it as an afterthought, but as a part of the planning process. I'm happy to inform you that private sector is a very key player in this sanitation service delivery in the context of a citywide inclusive sanitation programming. So it's not always a public sector, but I think we need to start looking at private sector as a key player in this and we would be happy in detail. And finally, civil society engagement for greater accountability and sustainability is a non-negotiable agenda, and technology and innovation in both in technology and business models are important. And this our effort of establishing what is called WASH Innovation Hub is an effort in that direction. And finally, multi-year climate resilient planning as a long-term, medium and long-term planning owned and approved by the municipality is very, very important. Unfortunately, there are no model guidelines, no model documents, and I think we have a responsibility to develop some model documents for replication. So these are some of our lessons, and I'm happy to inform you that we have started what is called sanitation tours, like a tourism tours. We have a sanitation tours, and we get a lot of delegates from all over the world, from Bangladesh, from Nepal, and other countries to see citywide inclusive sanitation in action and discuss about the 9 non-negotiables I discussed earlier. These 9 lessons actually often discussed and seen on the ground through this sanitation tours, this sanitation study tours, if I may say so. A lot of mayors and commissioners come here for discussion and participation. So these are our lessons, these are our experiences, and I would be more than happy to take on any questions. And I encourage all of you, whoever is coming to this part of the country, and those who are audience from India and the South Asia, please visit us, so that this cross learning, not only through webinar, but cross learning through sanitation tours, actually is going to give us much more important dividends and cross learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Chary. There is so much of information and very interesting to see all the role of the public engagement, the innovations, the public-private partnerships. So I am looking forward to have some joint discussion. So we can park these questions for later when we have the panel discussion. And now I would like to introduce our second speaker, Mr. Raman. Let me just load the presentation. So, Dr. Raman is a seasoned public health and WASH expert with close to 3 decades of work in the development sector. He is currently working part-time with the Sanitation Learning Hub in the Institute of Development Studies in Sussex as their India representative. He's also working with Ashoka Trust for research in ecology and environment in Bengaluru as a senior policy research expert for research in rural drinking water. Till recently, he was heading a WASH policy portfolio of the WaterAid, an international nonprofit. He has led important research work on critical issues around environmental sanitation, drinking water, hygiene, and WASH financing and governance. Without any further ado, Dr. Raman, the floor is yours.
All right. Thanks, Tina, for that introduction. And I'm very glad that there are generally speaking, second in such a series, is having its own limitation. But speaking after Professor Chary has a lot of advantages, as I see, because he has covered many of the introductory parts of the citywide inclusive sanitation, and also he has taken us through the non-negotiable 9 points, which are quite important when it comes to the further discussion that I'm going to do as well. So I'm glad to be part of this keynote series and this Global Sanitation Graduate School, whosoever is listening. My thanks to all of you for joining. So here, what I'm going to do is, since it is a 30-minute discussion, I'm not going to into the deeper details of the things, but I'll be highlighting many of the issues as possible from who is not included, or what is the kind of situation of inclusion of those people who are in the margins. So that is the kind of questions that I'm going to address here. And there are several examples and several studies that was done in this regard, and I'll be highlighting some of them as well. So the citywide inclusion. So first of all, that is where while the sanitation sector seems to have realized the importance of citywide sanitation, citywide inclusion, not necessarily all the other social development sectors has accepted this factor. So the exclusion is continuing to be a reality for many of the social groups. Many of the most vulnerable groups in urban locations, they are excluded from various development priorities, various development rights, human rights, and so on. So that is something that we need to note. So while we are talking about sanitation now, the equity and inclusion is also required for improving their lives in relation to other development sectors as well. So you can see this picture which talks about this the divide in the urban area. It is not only we generally talk about digital divide, the economic divide and the power divide is a very important thing that we need to discuss when it comes to citywide inclusion. And so this picture from the Business Insider, I took this picture thanks to this very stunning drawn image of Mumbai, wherein one side of Mumbai and the other side of Mumbai is very strikingly captured. So this side of the lower side of Mumbai, as in this photo, is the Dharavi slum, which is one of the largest slum or informal settlement in the world. And that is providing a large set of services for the entire Mumbai, whereas they remain to be the most neglected when it comes to the service provision aspect. So this is quite known when it comes to the global facts as well. So I'm limiting this discussion to India, not to say that this is not a global issue, but the experiences are mostly going to be from India. So this the first statement that I want to make is that the citywide inclusion is not an issue that is pertaining to only the sanitation sector, and the issues that is pertaining pertaining to the other sectors, other development sectors are also going to affect or determine what are the kind of initiatives that have been made by the sanitation sector as well. So this is to be noted. And now let me think of this is also something very non-issue, and Professor Chary also has covered this issue, in detail about how some of the cities in Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, and other states are trying to address this as part of the citywide inclusive sanitation. But still, it is important to look at some of these groups. So, groups in margins are largely they are the large, urban service providers, not necessarily sanitation workers, waste workers, and waste pickers. At times, there may be debate. There may be a debate that is not all of them are sanitation workers. I wanted to distinguish this for the fact that when we say sanitation worker, it not necessarily always represent all the various workers under this particular band. So Dalberg, in their study in 2016, the report that is available, has classified 9 types of sanitation workers. And here I'm only, for the purpose of this talk, I'm only mentioning 3 of them, including, this include domestic workers, railway cleaners, and various school cleaners, and those kinds of hospital workers. Those many details are there further when I say sanitation workers. Waste workers, I'm specifically, I'm covering here those people who are collecting waste from house and managing it from the organized colonies or not so organized residential areas of the towns. And the waste pickers, I mean, those who are segregating the waste from the large deposits of the urban waste. There are waste mountains you call it in different technical names, but in many of our cities they are like waste mountains, and these waste pickers go there and spend their entire day over there and segregate the waste and pick up something that is and quite often they are also part of, in some cities they are part of waste segregation in the formal sector as well. So they are formal and informal, that is there. And then broadly speaking, people who are living in slums, within a very limited clustered cluttered kind of living. And then homeless people who are spending their nights and days mostly around roadsides or under the bridges or those kinds of places. And then we have the refugee populations who are coming from other either from disaster sites or from the war and different situations are making them to run away. And then we have this other 2 groups are quite important: transgender persons and persons with disabilities. So these are the kinds of groups. And persons with disabilities, again, when we are saying the WHO classification makes it 21 types of persons with disabilities. But when we talk about accessibility in terms of sanitation or accessibility in terms of other sectors, we are only counting a few very visible ones, not necessarily all the invisible types of disability. And similarly, transgender persons, when we say there are varieties of it, and in the current discourse we can broadly also add the LGBTQ, the various categories included there. But transgender groups within that has very specific challenges with relation to meeting the sanitation requirements. So that is where these 8 groups I am counting in this process. And as I told, many of them are service providers when it comes to the urban requirements. So most of the urban residence requirements are met by the first 5 categories of the excluded population. So that is also a paradox, that those who are helping us to meet our life requirements are the excluded, and they see all the facilities and all the entitlement that the elite and middle class of the cities and towns are enjoying.
but they are not necessarily able to make those entitlements and make use of those entitlements for their own purposes. So this is something to be understood as well. So now, I have categorized those 8 specific groups, wherein one common element is that women in all the marginalized groups and not so marginalized groups, they all are excluded in different ways. So this is to be in this when Professor Chary was talking about the intention about gender inclusion, the reality continues to be that women in all marginalized and even within the elite groups and not so marginalized groups as well, they continue to be excluded when it comes to the issue of sanitation. And then there are some interesting and important examples of various initiatives for the excluded populations in India. So the first one, because we are talking about sanitation, it is very important to mention that for the urban poor. So the Government of India's programs are classifying all the various groups that I mentioned, except for persons with disabilities and transgender populations. All of them are counted under the urban poor classification. So water and sanitation schemes for the urban poor under earlier this scheme was known as Jawaharlal Nehru Urban Renovation Mission, JNNURM. Now this scheme is called Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation, AMRUT. AMRUT is translated to if you translate AMRUT to English from the Hindi or Sanskrit origin, this is called elixir. So this scheme is something to give life for the urban poor. Mainly, I mean, there are other schemes also under the Amrit scheme, but the specific schemes for water and sanitation for urban poor is part of this. And Swachh Bharat Mission was already mentioned by Professor Chary, and Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, which is the Prime Minister sponsored or the Prime Minister's flagship scheme for housing. That also covers a lot of sanitation and water related issue for the urban poor. And then we have some important guidelines at the national level. While Professor Chary has clearly mentioned that these guidelines are not necessarily covering the specific requirements at the city level, but we have a advisory on public and community sanitation, and this is specifically required for coverage sanitation, ensuring sanitation coverage for the various categories of urban poor and other excluded and marginalized populations. And this guidance, the advisory, is having a chapter specifically on gender specific mandatory infrastructure. And then we have this in the sanitation sector. One of the major challenge and major problem of the sanitation sector has been about in India has been about the existence and prevalence of something called manual scavenging. Manual scavenging is something globally many people may not understand what constitute manual scavenging. So I need to say very minimally about it. So that is any work that makes you to have interface with or any human interface with the human fecal matter, we can call them as manual scavenging for the purpose of this sanitation related discourse. So manual scavenging in India, there are many types of manual scavenging that exist in India. One of them is cleaning of the dry latrines traditionally done by a specific caste group of people, especially women. And then sewer and septic tank cleaning and FSTP cleaning, manually done by many people, also form part of the manual scavenging. Then we have railway line cleaning and drainage cleaning and various other types of work that constitute human interface with the human fecal matter. This is something has been prohibited in India by an act of Parliament in 2013. This is called the Prohibition of Employment as Manual Scavengers and their Rehabilitation PEMSR Act. And then we have rights of persons with disabilities. There is another act in 2016 which clearly talks about what are the rights of the persons with disabilities in reference to sanitation, water, and all. And similarly, there is a 2019 act, and this is called the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act of 2019. And we have also a previous judgment of the Honorable Supreme Court of India called the NALSA judgment. That is also very clearly, talks about the rights of the transgender people. And then we have there is a scheme for rehabilitation of manual scavengers, the self-employment scheme for rehabilitation of manual scavengers, wherein the government is providing a one-time cash assistance and also a lot of support in terms of loans and in terms of educational support for their children. Those kinds of programs are there as part of this scheme. It's called SRMS. And the National Action for Mechanized Sanitation Ecosystem. This is a new scheme that was introduced in 2022. This is called Namaste. So these are some important, legal and other framework that is existing in the country. And we also have, some other schemes like the Emergency Sanitation Response Unit. This is another scheme for, ensuring safety of sanitation workers while they are in work. There are specific mandates for those who are leading this response unit, calling the response unit, and when people are in service, how to do, how not to do, etc. And then another scheme called Swachhata Udyami Yojana. This is for entrepreneurship in the sanitation sector, how dignified work can be promoted. And some other examples are from the states of India. One is the Delhi Urban Shelter Improvement Board called DUSIB. So this is a Delhi state initiative. And then we have Garima and Drink from Tap scheme in Orissa state. And then there are other states, having several other similar schemes. Some of them Professor Chary has already covered. And then we have some schemes for improving the lives of the waste pickers. Now, what are the limitations? Most of that, the institutional limitations have been covered by Professor Chary. One major limitation is the unimaginable and very vast size of India and the scale of the country called India. Many times in the international discourse, this is not understood properly. We are talking about millions of people. So India has in Indian 1,380 million people in the broader population, and also the size of India, although it looks like very small in the broader globe or the map, it's not that small in terms of its in geography. So this makes and this is having 28 states and 7 union territories within that, and each of the states are in the federal system their own what you call independent ways of working. So this makes the complexity in terms of functional progress. So this is something to be understood. And then the market economy and profitability as the governance choice, which is for the last 30 years we are seeing liberal economy as the choice of many national governments, including India. So this is leading to very poor services for the poor and the marginalized population. So this economic policy and the broader issues are leading to some problems in this aspect. And then the weaker institutional capacities and mixed systems was already discussed. And the other thing is many of our policies are framed as something like a wish list, not necessarily supplemented by viable implementation framework, staff structures, and financing, the 4 Fs that Professor Chary was mentioning. And water and sanitation in India is a state subject, and municipal, the solid waste management and related issues are a municipal responsibility. However, cities and town revenues and capacities are going to determine whether they are able to do this properly or not. And particularly the small and medium towns in India are really struggling when it comes to fulfilling the mandates with reference to sanitation. So these are the limitations that we need to understand when it comes to the situation. Now, one example within all these limitations, Professor Chary has already mentioned about how Warangal and some of the other cities are doing. These are I am picking up a state-specific example of Orissa, wherein this the sanitation tour that Professor Chary has mentioned is taken. So they have a new utility that has been set up called the Water and the Water Corporation of Orissa. Water Supply Corporation of Orissa, and then the Orissa government has recognized the rights of water and sanitation for all people, including those in the informal settlements. For that purpose, they have given the slum dwellers some limited land rights through a specific way of because the pipe connections were to be given in the individual names and for all households, including the slum households. The slum households have been given a kind of limited land rights there, which is a very important measure that they have taken. And then they have this 24/7 pipe drinking water plans for everyone, including the slum populations have been initiated there. And they have also initiated a Garima scheme. Garima, means dignity. So this is for the safety and dignity of sanitation workers. So there are several uplifting measures, there are several safety measures and welfare measures for the individual and families involved in the sanitation work under this scheme. But when it comes to this example, it is also to be noted that many of these examples that we see in India are mainly because of the individual initiatives of the persons in leadership at the specific point in time. So this is a worry also, whether it is the specific cities, whether it is the state of Orissa, whether it is any other state. One of the worries is that if that person in the leadership, or if that political party in the leadership, if there is a change in that, how to sustain that the momentum of doing something for not the benefit of the poor, but for the rights of the poor. So this the rights of the poor and marginalized, how to respect that, how to attain that, and how to sustain that through a sustainable institutional framework remains to be a challenge in a country like India. So what are the dilemmas? While I put up the good case studies, there is a dilemma like this. Manual scavenging is still existing in the country, despite all the various efforts that is going on. So this can be indicated by the spending for the self-employment and rehabilitation of manual scavengers scheme, SRMS scheme. You can see that out of the 17,987 million rupees that has been allocated for the scheme, the spending so far over the last 10 years, you can say, within that 10 years, we are only spending 25%, less than 25% of the money that has been allocated for the scheme. So this itself is indicating that while there is a aspiration to do for the marginalized sector, but the actual implementation and the implementing system and the processes and the institutions are failing to failing to fulfill the government commitments in terms of inclusion. And then the other dilemma that is continuing in India is the deaths as part of sewer repair and sanitation systems repair. While mechanization is an agenda that has come into and very seriously taken by various cities, it is a sad reality in India that almost every week we are hearing news of sanitation workers dying in the sewer and other systems while they are working on, or sewage treatment plants while they are working on it because of the toxic gases or something very problematic for their life. And they don't even have basic systems in many places for getting into such a risky work. And the mechanization process, while it is given priority is not yet universally done, and also the systems that is in place for sewers and sewage treatment, they are yet to be made friendly for this mechanized processes. So there are challenges related to this sanitation workers' lives. And when it comes to the situation and work conditions of sanitation workers, waste pickers, they are continuing to be very poor. And coming to the overall systems that when I was in WaterAid with the Center for Equity Studies, we had done a study wherein it was very clear that many of the programs are not operational at the city level. Again, the problems were mostly at the small and medium towns, where budget and overall capacities of the towns were very limited. So that is something to be addressed. For waste pickers also, there are many things that we are yet to address. And when it comes to female and female-friendly public toilets and community toilets, there are several city-level initiatives. Professor Chary has already said, but there is still a long way to go, as the part of the woman who belong to the powerful segment of the society may be able to get their facilities done. But on the other hand, the workers, women in informal settlements, long route travelers, many of them are still suffering. Particularly women are suffering to get female friendly public sanitation facilities, including the necessary systems for meeting menstrual hygiene and related issues. When it comes to accessible sanitation for persons with disabilities, that is another problem that we are seeing. Accessibility, the Accessible India campaign is there. It is addressing designs of the public buildings and toilets, but specifically from mobility issues, and the blindness issues. But there are several other types of sanitation. Disability needs to be covered under these schemes. In Chhattisgarh, the state government of Chhattisgarh tried to come up with a policy for this after doing a assessment of the situation, how many disabled persons are there in each of the specific local government areas, territories, and then try to plan for it. But it is stuck at the halfway because of many of the policy issues. And similarly, the transgenders are continuing to struggle in this. So again, coming back to that female-friendly toilet issues, there was a study done in one of the central Indian towns, whereas this was done by the WaterAid, and I was part of WaterAid during that time. And this study has pointed out the public toilet infrastructure and the community toilet infrastructure in that particular town has long way. It's really in terms of basic infrastructure, the usability, and in terms of basic support systems that is needed for women for using the toilets during menstruation. All those areas were quite poor as far as this study is concerned. And when it comes to the largely about the urban women, two studies, one conducted by the Center for Urban and Regional Excellence, CWIS, for the Sanitation Learning Hub in Delhi, also pointed out that there are major limitations in terms of accessibility to many of these services for the women specifically compared to men, and they are continuing to face a lot of challenges and health problems due to the sanitation related gaps that they are facing in their daily lives. And so to conclude, it is very important to also say that the urban slums particularly faces a lot of disaster-like situations on an everyday life. Sometimes they face floods, sometimes they face fires and all that. So the sanitation systems for coping the daily life is missing. So this photo is about one slums in Nagaland. One of the slums in Nagaland. This is the kind of temporary toilet that they have. That they use on a daily basis. Not temporary. I use the word temporary. It looks like temporary, but this is a permanent system that they use on their daily basis. And we also don't have within the civil society, we don't have a system to actually study the various problems faced by the most marginalized communities in our society. So we need to develop methodologies, and the government has to also develop proper monitoring systems for monitoring, learning, and evaluation of how the services, specifically the sanitation services, are reaching or not reaching the most marginalized sections of the society, and how that could be ensured. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Raman. Now I am going to add all the participants, and then we have quite a few questions to address. While I'm doing this, I wanted quickly to play the video of the Global Sanitation School for a few seconds, and then see you with all the rest of it.
The Global Sanitation Graduate School is the world's largest platform for capacity building in citywide inclusive sanitation. We offer educational programs in sanitation with a focus on participants from low and middle income countries. We are expanding rapidly and welcome new members. Interested? Contact us today, www.sanitationeducation.org.
Thank you. Wow, welcome back, everyone. We have quite a few questions to address. Yeah, it was really interesting presentations and quite complementary to each other, seeing from the practical, from the theoretical, and from the practical perspective. So let me just go. Okay. So the first question, probably you should be able to see it. It's from Rajashri. Her question is directed to Professor Chary. She says, Sir, as mentioned by you earlier, the FSTPs established around Telangana. What are the current treatment technologies being used to treat fecal sludge?
So should I go ahead?
Yes, yes, please.
So thank you very much. As indicated earlier, uh, based on the local context, geography, availability of land, uh, and also the quantity of waste availability, about 6 different technologies have been promoted. And as I mentioned earlier, we believed in a technology neutral approach and allowed innovations to come. In the process, many service providers have come up with different solutions. Just to give you an idea, for example, we have used omniprocessor OP, as we call, which is a pyrolysis thermal system in the city of Warangal. Then we have electrocoagulation and biological treatment system with sludge drying, greenhouse sludge drying process. We use Class A biosolids as a criteria for standards or for the biosolids, and then we have what is called green tribunal norms or the local environmental regulator for the wastewater. We have also introduced geotube technology, which is geotube, which is very popular, which is used for liquid solid separation. The liquid will go to the MBBR system or SBR system, and the solids are retained in the bag. The bags are opened after about 45 days and is checked. It goes to a sludge drying. It goes to again a solar drying process, and then it is circulated into the economy for agriculture, non-potable agriculture applications. We also use a lot of UV disinfection process and infrared disinfection process for sludge as well as for the liquid waste. So by and large, there are 6 different technological configurations attempted. Some of them are nature-based solutions, some of them are mechanized solutions based on the quantity of waste being handled. In relation to the second question, just a continuation of the first.
Yes.
In India, we don't have standards for biosolids. So the local environmental regulator, every state has an environmental regulator. they have notified biosolids based on the UACPA norms of Class A biosolids. So basically, what we follow is a UACPA standards for biosolid Class A, standards for discharging of the biosolids. As far as liquid waste is concerned, we have the local environmental regulations for liquid waste. All the plants are what we call ZLL, zero liquid discharge facilities. The wastewater is not sent out. The biosolids are put out for horticulture or agriculture applications.
Thank you very much. We have another question related to Dr. Raman. Today, the budget was said that all the cities and towns are to be enabled for 100% mechanical dislodging septic tanks and sewer. And the continuation is, how do you think will this be able to bring change in lives of sanitation workers, and how challenging would the implementation of this be?
Right. Thank you, Mr. Vivek, for raising this question. Of course, I was going through, before this talk, I was going through the budget talk, and the specific mention itself is welcome. That at the top parliamentary level, when the government is putting up the budget for the country, this issue has been recognized. The issue has been recognized that the all cities need to make their systems operable for introduction of mechanized sewer cleaning and related issues wherein the human interface will be very limited. So that recognition is very important, but that's not enough. The recognition needs to be supplemented with adequate finances and the 9 non-negotiables that Professor Chary has listed, and percolating down from the budget speech to a specific department, the urban development and housing department, and then to state governments, and then to various urban governments from a very large size to a very small size, the diverse urban environment of India. This has a lot of changes that it happens when it comes from a declaration at the budget level and allocation of some money to actually percolating it down to the urban locations, and making it an agenda of urban administrators and urban leaders. So the problem in this is that while we are talking about at the top level, we are talking about this will be ready for mechanization. Many of the towns in India, their master plans and the ongoing systems that they are adopting is going in the same old way, wherein the norm was manual engagement of workers. So that system, the systemic change, unless and until there is a foundation for that is installed, it is very, very difficult that the new norms are getting. So this is a systemic issue. The second issue that we are facing, is part of your second question, is the mindset. The mindset that our country, India is, not only India, we can also count Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, the many of that Southeast Asian countries in this segment, wherein the very strong caste underpinnings are operational in our country, wherein the people in power mostly are from the advanced caste settings, and the people who are working are from the most downtrodden groups. So this non-realization of the administrators, the elite groups about the difficulties of the working class is a major challenge, and we need a behavior change. Was one aspect that Professor Chary was speaking. I would add an element of behavior change of administrators and leaders as a major kind of element for this kind of a transformation for sanitation workers. So that is where I think so this particular process is going to take time in India. So we need to see some short-term measures, very important short-term measures for addressing the current problem, and then, as Professor Chary has said, we need to look at medium and long-term measures for addressing this problem in total. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. The next question is from Miss Amaka. She's asking, it's one thing for the governments to write schemes on paper and another thing to translate them into practice. What would you say is the success rate so far, and what measures can we take to help implement them better? I guess this question refers to all of you, maybe all the panelists could address parts of it, including Prof Srikant and Ms. Prajakta. So maybe we can start with one of the two speakers first, and then we can move to the next one. Professor Chary, would you like to start? I think you might be on mute.
Yeah, thank you. So I can't quantify what is the success rate of schemes in India or outside India. It's a public policy issue, and many a times the policies and schemes may not translate into impact or gets implemented for a number of systemic reasons. We will discuss. But I would say that with regard to sanitation, the journey in India, the success rate is fairly, I would say, is pretty high. For example, let me give you one or two examples to demonstrate this. The scheme about provision of toilets, so phenomenal success. The scheme with regard to mechanization, there's a significant mechanization drive is happening with regard to sanitation workforce. But whether this mechanization is going to impact the sanitation, the quality of life and then their income levels, that we have to see. But definitely there is a significant movement. We will see that we are moving towards mechanization. A lot of innovations are coming on the ground. The market-based solutions are taking shape. So if you ask me, wherever the behavior change aspects are involved, systemic problems like what he mentioned about caste systems are involved, the progress would often be slow. But wherever there is an opportunity for innovation, the market-based solutions, technologies, and wherever the leadership is very strong, the political and administrative leadership, like as Mr. Raman mentioned about Orissa or Telangana or Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, few states in India, the success rate is pretty good. So I would say it's a mixed bag. It all depends on how we bring in civil society into this conversation, and that's what we are trying to do. The success rate would increase with greater engagement of civil society organizations. Wherever there is a greater public audit, wherever there is a mechanism for public engagement, transparency, accountability through civil society engagement, we believe the success rate would increase. And we have some good examples in India. And we are drawing those examples and trying to experiment in the context of citywide inclusive sanitation. So to summarize, just to say that wherever there is a civil society engagement, stronger civil society engagement, the success rate goes up. Wherever there is a behavior change communication, the change is going to be long term. Wherever there are systemic issues are there, as Mr. Raman mentioned, it's going to take its own time. Wherever the mechanization and innovation is there, the private sector is able to bring in competencies, talent to move the needle, move the change. It will be much faster. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Raman, would you like to add?
Yeah, thank you. I would, Prof Chary has brought in a lot of important points, and I'll add one element which probably may not be visible when it comes to many of the. One thing I have already told, that when you are writing, I mean, particularly in the India and similar low income and middle income settings, writing policies is about aspirations. It is not necessarily about a realistic understanding of what it takes to translate that policy into action. So as a public policy person, what I see is that many of our policies, the implementation framework part, how are you seeing this implemented? What is the kind of timeline that you are seeing about it? And who will implement it, and what is going to take in terms of finances and other resources, and how are you going to fulfill that? Those kinds of areas are quite often. So that is where the Namaka has mentioned writing schemes on paper. So I think that problem is persisting in many of our schemes. But there are schemes, as Professor Chary mentioned, which has progressed pretty well. Like the Swachh Bharat Mission in India, or similar other schemes. There are, in terms of the large scale, in terms of numbers, in terms of quantity, there is a lot of major achievement that has been happened. But when it comes to the inherent quality, there are problems. And when it comes to those areas where, that is where also important things to understand, like the Sustainable Development Goals as, derived its indicators in terms of measuring what is the key and critical, tiger of the ecosystem kind of indicators they have developed. While many of our programs are not able to develop and measure those indicators, it's a major kind of limitation for us. So for that reason, while the sanitation in terms of number of toilets we would have achieved a lot, but whether the toilet technology is introduced in those areas, whether they are appropriate for the specific geographical context or not, is a question that we cannot answer. So there are many such unseen and hidden issues that we need to look at before we say even those well implemented or quote and unquote well implemented schemes will have its own nuances that we need to understand. So I would say there is a change in the environment about understanding these issues when it comes to citywide inclusive sanitation, but that change of understanding is not enough to address requirements in a sustainable manner, for which that again I'll go back to that 9 non-negotiable principles that Professor Chary brought in. That those 9, if we are not able to achieve that in all our small to large urban areas, we are not going to succeed in those processes. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Professor Srinkath, would you like to add?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Now, in terms of like, if you want to look at the success rate, I think it's still at very early stage to look at the real numbers part. But I'm sure that the numbers are going to increase over a period of time. Like with so much of emphasis now in Swachh Bharat Mission 2 on having treatment systems in place, I think it will take. I mean, we can measure the success rate in a couple of years' time. Um, so, having said that, it is not just the technology that's going to prove whether it is a success or a failure, right? So, there are so many other, as the speakers have said, it's the governance, it's the of course the finance mechanism is in place, either the PPP model or the other models. It's total on the other side as well, like the governance, behavior and advocacy, all aspects are going to play, not just the technology aspect into it. So that will basically, so it's showing that it's not just the technology that will translate them into practice, but then slowly it will take time, and but it's on the right track in terms of like looking at alternative treatment systems, not just the classical the big sized central treatment plants. So in that way we're going to see soon the success rate going up, and I think the measures are already in place in terms of looking for alternate treatment systems.
Thank you so much. Projector, do you have anything more to add?
Uh, since the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan is started in India, many festivals and everything is coming up, the technologies and all. So the most important part right now is to the behavior change that we need to focus on. So to increase the success rate, as well as the participation from the community, as well as the as Professor Chary had said about the public participation, as well as the private sector as well. Yeah. So I guess
Thank you.
that will help. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, I would move to the next question from Guru Prasad. So he's asking a general question with respect to treatment capacity of the treatment capacity of India. From almost a decade, we know that India's treatment capacity for domestic sewage is less than 40%. There is a follow-up. What is the current capacity, and has the government, state or central, has fixed up the milestones of timeline for increasing the capacity? I would open it, and whoever would like to step in first.
Yeah, so Mr. Guru Prasad, thank you very much. Yeah, the number sort of stagnated between 35 to 40%, no doubt about it. I think the population also has gone up phenomenally. The urbanization rates have also gone up. More towns have been added. Villages have been converted to towns. So by and large, the scale of urbanization has increased. So we may look at that 35 to 40% sort of as a stagnant number. But definitely, the treatment capacity has not increased at the same pace as the population and the level of urbanization that's happening, no doubt. If I may say so, the number, the overall treatment capacity has gone up. But in terms of percentage point, it is absolutely right. You're right. 40% is where we are right now, slightly lower than that. What is a milestone? Technically, if you combine both two national schemes, both Amrut, which is targeting 500 cities with wastewater treatment, and if you combine Swachh Bharat Mission, which is looking at all small and medium towns, 4,000 plus, which is also financing used water treatment and fecal sludge management. And if I add up all the Namami Gange Clean Ganga mission, technically speaking, by 2025, we should have a significant increase in treatment capacity. I'm not speaking about sewerage system, but I'm speaking about the treatment of the wastewater and the fecal sludge. We should be reaching a significantly large number. In my guess is maybe 60-70%. Though the government's vision is close to 100%, there could be implementation challenges, land, counterpart funding, many ifs and buts in the implementation. But I think there'll be a significant jump in the treatment capacity with regard to wastewater and fecal sludge management.
Thank you so much. And I would just jump to the next follow-up question from Guru Prasad.
Can I add one?
Yes, of course.
One small point here. Yeah.
Yes,
So one
yes.
important point to add here is, when we are talking about the treatment capacity from the inclusive point of view, to have systems and processes, we have the decentralized fecal sludge management related ideas that is going on discussed in the country. But what will be the systems and processes, technology for slum settings is a question that we are yet addressing. So maybe what is that? It's also important to think about in light of this question. Maybe small bore sewerage system, or what is the future for the most excluded communities in the urban settings is importantly a thinking while we are trying to needs to be a thinking while we are trying to expand the treatment capacity. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Raman. And probably this links quite well with the follow-up question. Has the implementation of decentralized system made any positive impact? What is your intake on that?
So would you like me?
A quick response. Yeah, Raman, please go ahead.
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead.
No, I mean, the decentralized system is predominantly driven through the regulations right now. There are environmental impact assessment notifications and building bylaws where the point of generation treatment is mandatory in many big cities. In bulk, waste generators like high-rise buildings, gated communities, industries, commercial establishments. Most of the states mandate decentralized point of generation treatment systems. If you ask me whether it has created any positive impact, not much. Though the infrastructure has come, the regulatory oversight on the decentralized system is pretty weak. And because of that, the treatment plants are built, but their functionality and the efficiency of these systems is a big question mark. So I would say that while regulations have enabled decentralized point of generation treatment systems in private establishments and even some government establishments, but the impact in terms of treatment quality, environmental improvement is a big question mark because of the weak regulatory oversight in India.
Thank you. Dr. Raman, what would you like to
Yeah,
add?
only one different aspect here, not necessarily the decentralized fecal sludge management I'm talking about. I'm talking about the broad governance decentralization that is happening in India from 1993. So it's very critical for the urban local governments or the urban local bodies to have more functions, functionaries, and finances, and the other critical requirements for taking up their mandatory responsibilities with related to not only sanitation but all other living, improving the living conditions of the people, particularly the poor. So it is quite important. The decentralized governance system has at least brought forward in India the responsibilities of the urban local bodies, but they need to be supplemented with the capacities. That is what I would like to add. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I see our time is
If I
off
can add,
now. Professor Srinkat, I wanted to actually to give you the final closing remarks as our co-host, but please feel free to add to the
yeah,
previous question.
no, okay, so I add to that, and then maybe so if you look at the decentralized systems, like over the water is going to be the issue. So the centralized systems, if it has to work, then it has to conduct the waste from the point of origin to the treatment system. And even if you look at now the central treatment plants in India, the capacities built have been at large, but the amount of waste water that they are getting is lower. So these, if we can help the monitoring agencies like the pollution control boards in some way that they are able to monitor frequently the large number of decentralized plants that are going to come up, maybe at like online sensors and etc. So then the decentralized will make a bigger impact. And going forward, if you see, that's the only way possible, because the central treatment plants require large amount of water, not leaving out the infrastructure aspect and the costs. If we don't consider that, even then what is required for them to operate is the water, which is going to be a limitation in future. um,
Thank
so yeah,
you.
so with that, yeah, I thank the speakers for taking their time. And so, is it allowed? Okay, Constantina, so
Sorry, I couldn't hear you well.
to give the final mark.
Yes, 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 please go ahead. Yeah. I think there might be some technical issue. Well, probably, hopefully, Professor is coming back. While waiting for him to come back to give the final
Hello.
closing. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah. Okay. So
We
I'm.
can hear you now.
You,
Yeah.
you can go ahead. Yeah. So there was some issue, and then yeah, you can go
Yes,
ahead with
please. You can give the closing remarks. Thank you.
that. So I thank both the speakers for taking their time out and joining us and giving these interesting talks and giving the perspective of the citywide inclusive sanitation. And And it was pleasure hearing you. And then I think we will continue our collaborations, and then we see you in future in our other talks as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And before we close, I also wanted to thank firstly the wonderful presentations and our great speakers. And secondly, our wonderful co-hosts from BITS Pilani and our partners. Thank you very much for all the effort that you put in to organize this session. We would have another session. We would reach out soon who would be the next partner. Thank you and see you next time. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
The Global Sanitation Graduate School is the world's largest platform for capacity building in citywide inclusive sanitation. We offer educational programs in sanitation with a focus on participants from low and middle income countries. We are expanding rapidly and welcome new members. Interested? Contact us today, www.sanitationeducation.org.